Last Day on Earth has been surrounded by clickbait since the day it was born in May of 2017. If you watch this video until the end, you will know everything there is about the clickbait competition. My video last week polarized many of you, as some of you thought that I was doing clickbait. And while sometimes I do meddle in some mild clickbait nowadays, by the time you finish watching this video, you will not only know everything about the Kefir versus YouTube clickbait competition, but you will also realize why my last video about Helicopter Clan Wars has zero clickbait in it. But before we talk about the competition, we first need to define what clickbait is so that we are all talking about the same term. Many times when people use the word clickbait, they're referring to a feeling rather than the actual term or standard. That feeling is not wrong. In fact, it was the feeling that we got when we first experienced clickbait that caused us to come up with the term in the first place. But defining the term can help us all be more efficient as we communicate about those feelings. So Google's definition of clickbait is content whose main purpose is to attract attention and encourage visitors to click on a link or particular web page. Which this isn't a bad definition because it covers most forms of clickbait, but the problem with this definition is that it accidentally includes many forms of entertainment. For example, many YouTubers will make entire videos just for the purpose of getting attention and encouraging people to watch it, like these guys who built a trampoline out of Kevlar so that they could bounce a car off of it. But then when we watch the video, we think, wow, that was truly amazing, and it doesn't feel like clickbait at all. So after looking at several definitions of clickbait, I decided that my favorite was the one from Merriam-Webster, which defines clickbait as something such as a headline designed to make readers want to click a hyperlink, especially when the link leads to content of dubious value or interest. I love this definition because not only does it cover everything in the other definitions, it also adds especially when it leads to content of dubious value or interest. And I think that's it right there. That's what bothers us about clickbait. What bothers us about clickbait is that when we click on it and watch it, or we download it and play it, we are disappointed. We thought we were going to get something that we didn't end up getting. So for example, in regards to Last Day on Earth, my biggest disappointment when I started the game was the realization that it was not real multiplayer. They had made it seem like it was on Google Play when I was considering downloading the game. They further led me to believe that it was by making me choose a server, even though I know now that those don't actually exist. And then they set up AI players to look like real players, which ultimately ended up giving it away. Regardless, it was one of the most extreme clickbait experiences I've ever experienced in a game, but I still wasn't that upset about it because I was very hopeful that it would be adding multiplayer as soon as they had the chance. But of course, that is not the only thing that Last Day on Earth advertises being in the game that was not actually in the game. As I mentioned in my last video, there were tons of items, weapons, and vehicles that seemed like they were in the game, but in reality they were not. So this disappointed some players, but more importantly, this act started the clickbait competition between Kefir and Last Day on Earth YouTubers. Now at first it wasn't really much of a competition. Kefir had a bunch of things that weren't actually in the game, but they wouldn't confirm or deny what was or wasn't in the game. So YouTubers were able to milk that for everything it was worth. In fact, some of you may think that there's a lot of clickbait now, but back then, it was crazy. There were tutorials on how to get certain items in the game, like the ATV transmission, that weren't in the game, and they would make a full step-by-step tutorial and then edit that object into the video and then not tell anybody that it was all fake. And there were tons of them. It was like the Wild West of YouTube. I was not a YouTuber at the time. In fact, I know this is crazy, but I didn't even watch gaming videos. I played games, but I never watched other gamers. Then when I first started playing Last Day on Earth and was trying to figure out what was or wasn't in the game, I found myself on YouTube for answers. And then after watching several videos, I realized that I had some tactics that were better than what was online, which ultimately caused me to start this YouTube channel. So about a year ago, I had the crazy realization that if Last Day on Earth did not have clickbait in the game, I would have never become a YouTuber. Both because I would have never really even watched a lot of YouTube, but also because all of that misinformation about the game is what made me so successful starting off. I think about in Star Wars when they say that when there's an imbalance in the Force, something from the other side will rise to challenge the imbalance. The misinformation centered around Last Day on Earth is what gave birth to the need for JCF. In fact, I'm very curious to know how many of you were brought to YouTube for similar reasons. So if you wouldn't mind, please vote in this poll. But that is where the competition began. On one side, Kafir does still produce some clickbait advertisements and such to get people to play the game. And then there are YouTubers like me, Rezbach, and mTurboGamer that compete with this and try to bring as much information to players in a short amount of time as possible. But the competition is not actually a two-sided competition. In addition to informative YouTubers, there are still many clickbait YouTubers. And then in competition with those YouTubers are the community manager developers and their volunteer managers that try to help clear up some of that information. And then lastly, there are entertaining YouTubers, which often also make clickbait, but through the course of their long, entertaining videos, they clear up the information by the end so that they're not leaving players confused. This is by far the most successful way to work the YouTube system, and while I do not have an interest in doing that on this channel, I have several friends that approach YouTube this way, and I think they're very smart for choosing this approach because it is by far the best return on investment in both income and subscribers. So that is the competition between these 5 groups. Some create misinformation for the sake of gaining interest, while others attempt to clear up that misinformation, and in the end, almost everybody wins. Last Day on Earth gets more players to download the game, which then gives all 3 types of YouTubers more viewers to watch their videos, and then in turn, Last Day on Earth gets more players, which creates more job opportunities and job security for Kafir's community managers. The only people that don't win are the players that are doing the information runaround, but sometimes the runaround can be fun, especially if the game is a lot of fun, so even players can win if the game is good enough to make it worth it. Or at least that's my opinion. If you have a different opinion on this, make sure to mention it in a comment below. Lastly, this video was sponsored by Red Magic. I play on a Red Magic 3S, which I love, and I could not recommend it more to you guys. It has amazing specs, awesome gaming triggers, and so much more. If you want to know more about this phone, make sure to check out my non-sponsored video about this phone called How to Get More Buttons. I also put information in the description and pinned comment of this video. Well, that's it guys. I post a high quality video every Friday at the same time each week. Also, I'm going to be making a lot of Last Day on Earth videos over the next couple months because I'm getting pretty close to 100,000 subscribers, so I'm going to try to speed that up. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.